Holiday weekend edition of Justice. I'm Judge Jeanine Pirro. You know, it's been a campaign season for the ages, and the real fun hasn't even started yet. Tonight, we'll preview a general election sure to make history. In November, will we elect this country's first female president, or a man with no political experience who's defied the odds at every turn? Joining me now to look ahead to this historic matchup is a man who knows a thing or two about Washington, D.C., former Republican Speaker of the House and Fox News contributor Newt Gingrich. All right, good evening, Mr. Speaker. We're thrilled to have you on, Justice, and so I'm going to get right to it. You know, as we inch closer to the election, it seems that all of the givens from almost a year ago are upside down. Hillary was going to be coronated and Donald Trump was just dabbling. And now we've got Donald Trump before, as he says he's even started, beating Hillary. What do you attribute this to?
Well, I think a couple of things. Partly personality. Trump has turned out to be an amazingly entertaining national figure who has people absolutely mesmerized watching him, and he's making points that lots of people agree with. Turns out Hillary's a really bad candidate who is sort of boring and who doesn't communicate authenticity the way Trump does. I think, second, Trump did a brilliant job of using all of modern social media, including television and talk radio and Twitter and Facebook and you name it. And I think that made him different. And frankly, Sanders did something very similar. He reached out on the Internet, $27 apiece, actually for several months raised more money than Clinton. And so Clinton has found herself in a life and death struggle at the very moment that Trump has now clearly passed 16 other candidates to become the nominee. It is not at all the year any of us would have guessed a year ago.
And, you know, based on what you said, Mr. Speaker, I mean, this is almost a new era in politics where you've got both of these candidates not going the traditional media market and political ads and all that, but just tweeting things out. And Donald Trump, when you think about it, I mean, the man he doesn't sleep, I'm convinced of it, but he is tweeting and he is constantly on the phone. He's got the control room numbers of most of the stations. Hillary, on the other hand, I have this visual of her in the beginning of the campaign where she was marching and they roped off the reporters from her. I mean, isn't she just a personification of the old school politics?
Well, she is, and she has a number of really bad habits. First of all, she's way overstaffed. You know, Trump is his own instant response person. Yeah. He's able to be fast, nimble, he learns, and he's constantly in motion. She has lots of people around her. I think they have 10 times as big an organization as Trump does. Trump may have won the nomination for less money than anybody in modern times. I mean, his ability to use earned media and social media has been, as you pointed out correctly, literally historic and potentially changes the game. There's also another problem. Even when she tries to be authentic, Hillary just can't pull it off. I mean, when they said, oh, let's be authentic, we'll go use the subway in New York. Well, it was embarrassing. I mean, you want to say, come on, guys. Yeah. Ever do something she's used to doing, like sitting in the back of a limousine surrounded by the Secret Service. But don't try to make her somebody she's not.
But, you know, to me, and the numbers that you quote are very accurate. We had Corey Lewandowski on the campaign manager of the Trump campaign. He said, hey, we've got like 70 people. She has 732 people on her campaign staff. But doesn't that in itself speak to efficiency, speak to the, you know, the intelligence that a businessman has, and the redundancy in government we're going to start seeing float away, hopefully?
Well, I think that's right. I mean, Trump, if you remember, with the Woolman skating rink, which the city of New York couldn't fix in Central Park, yes. The city spent 6 years, $13 million. Trump, and they couldn't fix it. It did not make ice. Trump finally stepped in. They gave him approval. In 3 months, for $2.5 million, he fixed something which the city had thrown away $13 million in 6 years. You take that efficiency, that entrepreneurial drive and you apply it to the federal government, it could be a very exciting couple of years.
And what about the issue of, Donald Trump started with immigration and then the ban on Muslims and all that. And, Hillary Clinton came out recently and said, promoting the ban on Muslims or saying you're going to do it is promoting terrorism. It's kind of like Barack Obama saying Guantanamo, Gitmo promotes terrorism. Is this political speak? Is this just,
No.
like this political correctness gone wild where people say whatever they think their side wants to spew out?
I think it's a reminder that the left is crazy when it comes to Islamic supremacy. The first great attack is 1979, when the Ayatollah Khomeini allows the students to take over the U.S. Embassy illegally. Now, I don't think Donald Trump was the cause of that. You had the attacks on 2 American embassies in East Africa under Bill Clinton. You had the attack at Khobar Towers under Bill Clinton. You had the attack on the USS Cole in Yemen under Bill Clinton. I don't think Donald Trump caused any of those things. But if you're a left-winger, you have to forgive terrorists anything because they're anti-American, and you don't want to be too aggressive about people who are anti-American because it violates your requirement as a left-winger to never fully protect America.
And it's a sad commentary on politics on the left anyway in America. Mr. Speaker, Newt Gingrich, thanks so much for being with us this evening.
Good to be with you.
All right. And as we inch closer to the conventions and the inevitability that Donald Trump will clinch the delegates needed for the Republican nomination, it does appear that a portion of the Republican establishment is getting behind the Trump campaign. But that wasn't the case until very recently. Sometimes my opening statements here on Justice take on a life of their own on social media. That was the case with this one. From March 5th, just days after Mitt Romney took on Donald Trump and urged Republican voters to turn their back on the man who was getting more votes than anyone else. I wasn't having any of it. Take a look. There's an insurrection coming. Mitt Romney just confirmed it. We've watched governors, the National Review, conservative leaders, establishment and party operatives trash Donald Trump. But Mitt Romney will always be remembered as the one who put us over the edge and awoke a sleeping giant, the silent majority, the American people. Fact, the establishment is panicked. Mitt essentially called for a brokered convention where the Republican nominee will be selected by party activists and delegates, irrespective of their state's choice. The call? To vote for whomever has the best chance of beating Donald Trump. You want a brokered convention? A primer, Mitt. Whenever we have one, we lose. Dewey and Ford emerged from a brokered convention to lose the general election. So why? Because the party elites and elders want to protect us and stop us from falling into the abyss? Mitt, I'm sure you and your cronies don't feel this, but most of us working 2 and 3 jobs think we're already in the abyss, the Obama abyss. And most of us scared about our safety and security. And you want to prevent us from falling into a recession? We don't believe any of you. That's why outsiders are so strong in both parties, while the insiders seek a brokered convention or superdelegates to guarantee their own positions. You're panicked. Not for us, but because you're worried about losing power. The lobbyists, the pharmaceutical companies, the power brokers, the lawmakers who are willing to invest in absurd pensions our children can't possibly pay for their own short-term political survival. We are sick and tired of legislators with modest means who leave Congress multi-millionaires whose spouses and families get all the contracts from selling the post offices to accessing insider information so they can buy property and flip it. You're so entrenched that you're willing to give Hillary Clinton a win. It doesn't matter to you which party. Crony capitalism and its paradigm will not change for the elite. Let the American people suffer along the way. You know, Mitt, if you're so concerned about our country, where were you when Barack Obama lied to us, saying we could keep our health care and our doctor? Where were you when the GSA wasted millions of our dollars for stupid conferences? When the military suffered as the VA was run like a piggy bank for corrupt employees? When the IRS went after conservative 501c3 applicants while the Clinton Foundation runs one of the biggest 501c3s in the world, which strikes me as a money laundering organized criminal enterprise parading as nothing more than a shell to pay campaigners and Clinton operatives to secure Hillary's election? And you say you're offended by Donald Trump's language? Politicians have been trashing each other since the Founding Fathers. Language so horrible, Mitt, I can't even repeat on the air. You're so offended by Trump's language, but not Barack Obama's condemnation of those who cling to God and guns. And you're worried about Donald Trump's businesses? You, Mitt, were a corporate raider who threw people out of work and sent jobs out of our country. And you don't like Donald's temperament and judgment? You couldn't even stand up to CNN's Candy Crowley. You couldn't even get elected when the nation was ripe for a Republican president. And 70 foreign policy security experts say, quote, Mr. Trump's own statements lead us to conclude that as president, he would use the authority of his office to act in ways that would make America less safe and diminish our standing in the world. Are those bozos talking about Barack Obama? And they go on to say that he poses a distinct threat to civil liberties in the United States. Really? I'm worried about the civil liberties of Americans who've had their heads cut off and those killed in workplace violence. Did you criticize that? No. And you want us to vote for Rubio? Why? What has he done? Aside from having one of the largest absentee voting records in the history of the U.S. Senate. And you complain about Trump University. Mitt, mind explaining your connection to Full Sail University, which knew how to, quote, hold down the cost of their education when in truth it was one of the most expensive colleges in America, when the owners were top donors to you through Solomir Capital? Remember? You were an original investor there. And how about Vandertot College, where Ferguson's Michael Brown was about to attend, and your pals were about to cash his federal financial loan? Your namby-pamby reason that you won't support Donald Trump, even if he's the party's nominee? You worry what you'll tell your grandchildren when they ask, why, Grandpa, didn't you stop Donald Trump? Well, maybe you ought to worry about when they ask about your loss to Barack Obama. What are you going to tell them? Will you tell them that you choked? And I don't care if he supported Democrats, Republicans, or Martians. He was a businessman. And I don't care if he said Putin was a strong leader he could get along with. Hell, Hillary Clinton hit a reset button with Russia. And you're worried about Putin when Barack Obama dances with the devil in Iran? Mitt, I never knew you were such a patriot. And you say Donald's arrogant. He says things that you don't, but things that you think. Your acts are more arrogant than his words. And Mitt, you lost your own state, Massachusetts, which was the second worst home state loss in presidential election history. And Trump won 49% of Massachusetts. Donald Trump is bringing in record numbers of Americans. He's doing more to add to our ranks than any of your anemic get-out-the-vote operations. Yes, there's an insurrection coming. We're fed up. We're sick of the lies, the veils, and the games you talk about immigration, yet no one has done anything since the last amnesty in 1986. While we continue to pay for education, medication, housing, while families like Kate Steinle's, murdered by an illegal deported 5 times, convicted 7 times, suffer behind backdoor budget hearings. You continue to fund sanctuary cities that thumb their noses at American victims. You talk about overspending in the government and the deficit. It's only gotten bigger. You take our money in the form of taxes, waste it away while you feather your own nest. From Bob Dole to John McCain to you, Mitt Romney, and almost another Bush. The party elite can cannot win. Don't be small, Mitt. Remember our history. Remember when we were fed up with a monarchy? Be careful. Be very, very careful. Do not disrespect the man who makes sense to us, because when you disrespect him, you disrespect the will of the American people. And that's not a good place to be. And remember,